Oh, hello there. I didn't see you come in. My name's Eric Metaxas, and I have a guest, Gavin Wax, who is the 76th president of the New York Young Republican Club. Welcome back, Gavin Wax.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be back.
I like that idea, 76th president. People are like, who is 75? I believe that was Gerald Ford. So, look, we got a lot to talk about here. Let's start with, you're Jewish.
Yes.
And you're a New Yorker, and you're
Yeah.
conservative.
I
and
like
I want
bagels.
to talk to you about Israel.
Yep.
But first, I want to talk to you about the happy clappy news. It's my opinion that Matt Gaetz is a hero. He should be on Mount Rushmore for what he did because greatest trade ever. Kevin McCarthy for Mike Johnson. What am I getting wrong?
No, you're hitting the nail on the head. I think what Matt Gaetz did was historic. It was unprecedented. The political maneuvering on Capitol Hill, it's something we never saw before. I mean, everyone was sort of complacent. They were basically stuck in this rut, this status quo that, we need to have McCarthy. He's the best we're going to get. We can't deviate from him. He could break promises. He could betray the base. He could be really lackluster. He could cut deals with the Dems. And we just have to put up with it because he's the best we're going to get. And I think through Matt Gaetz's leadership on the Hill and the other 7 that were with him, the original gang of 8, they were able to show that, no, there is a path politically for conservatives to wield power on Capitol Hill, to change the dynamic, to change the paradigm, and to bring in new conservative leadership. And was it overnight? Was it pretty? Was it a little messy? Absolutely, but that's politics. And anyone who
And who cares? Listen,
Right.
I just want to say, for the young people listening at home, if you've been around the block a little bit, you hear the same garbage over and over and over. And I've heard this my whole life. Don't do this. If you do this, this is going to happen, whatever. It never happens. Every time. When Trump said, I'm going to move the embassy to Jerusalem, people lose their minds. If you do that, you have no idea what you're going to unleash. Total garbage,
Right.
Total lies. But I hear this over and over and over. Anytime anybody shows real leadership, the satanic forces assert themselves and basically go insane and say, you can't do that, you can't do that. Look, it happened to Ronald Reagan. I know you're too young to remember this. When he said in 1987, this is the last chapter of my book, Letter to the American Church. 1987, he goes to Berlin. And he says, he wants to say, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. All of the moderates, Howard Baker, Colin Powell, lost their minds. They said, you don't understand, Mr. President. You can't do that. It will be chaos. It will be. He did it, and guess what? As a result of that, changed the dynamic, and not only did the Berlin Wall fall, but the Soviet Union comes apart. This, to me, is like a spiritual principle that when you have actual leadership like Matt Gaetz showed, the hordes of hell go absolutely crazy. The media say the same thing. Right. This chaos, it's embarrassing to the Republican Party. The Republican Party should be embarrassed for putting up Kevin McCarthy.
100%. Look, there's such a lack of leadership, such a lack of visionaries in politics, writ large, that when you see it in Matt Gaetz, people get shocked, they get scared, they stumble over themselves, and they vilify him because he's a threat to the system. These political hacks, they hate anyone with leadership, anyone with a backbone.
By the way, thank you for not mentioning Mitch McConnell by name, because that would be unseemly.
Well, the Senate's another story. I mean,
but I'm just saying that when you talk about political hacks, they're wedded to power.
Yep.
And I think Americans are beginning to get this, that we thought that those people were sort of on our sides, but then you realize they are up to a point, and then they're with the enemy.
It's all percentages, and look, it's all about moving the needle in the right direction. Everyone's going to complain about little things, about Johnson here, there, and there, but if you're in politics for this utopian future, you're barking up the wrong tree. He's moving it in the right direction. We have a way better speaker there who's definitely going to get things, who's a lot closer to the vast majority of the Republican Party than Kevin McCarthy ever was. The system is still, it's still in place. There's still a lot of rent seeking. There's still a lot of corruption, but we need to move the needle. And every time we move the needle, the country gets better for it. I mean, that was the 4 years under Trump. We're seeing now the world burning. We're going to talk about that later. So all these things matter little by little.
Well, it's interesting to me because what I love about Mike Johnson, the new speaker, is that he's saying all the kinds of things that makes people's heads explode. Like he says, you want to know what I think? Open up the Bible. Oh my goodness.
Yep.
Like people like Bill Maher and others just lose their minds over this. Now, you know, having a biblical worldview, that's what gave us the United States of America.
Right.
It's what gave us the West. And he says something like that, and so they come after him. Oh, he's a Christian nationalist. Yeah, just like George Washington, really scary extremist. So I'm astonished. And also, for those who aren't aware of it, maybe you can shed light on this. To me, it was nothing less than miraculous. I mean, genuinely miraculous, God's hand in history, because no one was talking about Michael Johnson. His name was not being vetted. Where did he come from? How did this happen?
Well, that's what the great thing about this all was. You know, you had leadership embarrassing themselves one after another. They're all stabbing each other in the back. There's all these backdoor Machiavellian games. And then you have this guy, you could probably describe him as a backbencher, really, in many ways. Smart guy, a lawyer, you know, clean cut, great hair. He has the views we like. And he slowly, you know, round after round, he was making his move. And he has all the right views, but he doesn't alienate anyone. And it shows that he has a level of tact, and he's able to, you know, talk a good talk. He's able to bring sides together, which is really the job of leadership, or really the job of speaker. So multiple rounds, they forced, I think Gates talked about this a bit, they forced a roll call vote, which was really Johnson's doing. And they say, listen, come on the record right now. Tell your constituents where you are on this leadership debate, because this 40 or so rhinos who were still trying to vote for McCarthy, bring McCarthy back after all this kind of charade that was going on behind the scenes, they said, no, we're going to stay here, we're going to vote, we're going to get a roll call. They forced their hands, and then it went from having like 40-something opposition to 0 opposing him.
And now why? What happened to the 40 rhino bums? In case you don't know what a rhino is, just a bum, B-U-M. What happened to them? In other words, were they outed that now that it's going to be public?
Correct.
They thought, well, we don't want to get primaried, so we'll go along with it.
That's all it was. It was the second they couldn't hide behind a secret ballot. And it's ridiculous that an elected official even has a secret ballot. Secret ballots are for you and me to go so we don't get pressured by people at the ballot box. But if you have an elected official, you need to know where they're voting. Leadership counts on bills, whatever. So they always need to have a roll call vote, in my opinion. But they hid behind that. The second that charade was dropped.
Now, how did that charade get dropped? You're saying Matt Gaetz made that happen?
So, funny enough, it was actually a moderate congressman from New York, this guy Mark Molinaro, who said, why don't we just do a roll call vote right now? Why do we have to go and leave? And that was so critical, because every time there was like this sort of recess where they broke and they were able to, you know, leave conference, that's where McCarthy and his people were able to start getting the daggers out. They start doing the oppo. They start dropping the hits. They start working behind the scenes. So not allowing them that time to regroup, re-strategize, and go after Johnson enabled Johnson to win. So it was really a matter of timing. I agree with you. It was almost like a divine intervention in a way, because this could have kept going on. And the strategy was for McCarthy to knock out everybody, and then he just emerges as like, you have to take me now. No one else could do it. But it was a total charade. It was a total farce. And these 40, these are the same people that attacked Gaetz. Oh, you voted with Democrats. So did they. They voted with the Democrats on the CR. Far worse. These are the same people that said, why are we doing this speakership battle? This makes us look stupid. But they were the ones who didn't even vote for someone like Scalise, who ideologically was really no different than McCarthy to begin with. So they all showed themselves to be complete frauds, because they didn't vote for Jordan, they didn't vote for Scalise, they didn't vote for Emmer, but then they ended up all voting for Johnson, who's more conservative than all of them. So what was the fight up until then about?
You tell me, what was it about? I don't get it.
It was political maneuvering. They were hoping they could get McCarthy. They wanted to embarrass the dissenters. They wanted to embarrass the conservative wing.
This is why we haven't Gavin Wax on the show, ladies and gentlemen, because I didn't know that. That makes sense. That makes sense. So they wanted McCarthy, so they were willing to drag this out so that everybody could say, oh, it's terrible, the chaos.
And set
Let's
precedent.
go back to McCarthy. Let's go back to Egypt, where they fed us. They let us make bricks without straw. Let's go back to Egypt. That's exactly what we're talking about. And I want to say, I know people who are, devout Christians who pray. It's like next level stuff. And Dutch Sheets, who is he's the one with the strangest name, but he was saying that a number of them felt God tell them to pray for Mike Johnson. Now, folks, if you listen to the program, you know me. They didn't know who Mike Johnson was. So there's much more to that story. Dutch Sheets wrote about it in his Give Him 15 the other day, 2 days ago, whatever it was, 3 days ago. But out of nowhere, here comes MAGA Mike Johnson. It's just crazy and beautiful. This is if you want good news, folks, this is good news. We'll be right back talking to Gavin Wax. Don't go away. Welcome back. I'm talking to Gavin Wax, who is the 76th president of the New York Young Republican Club. Yes, we have young Republicans in New York. I'm Republican. I'm not that young anymore, but we have him, and here he is, the president. Okay, so Wax, that's Jewish.
Yes.
You're Jewish.
Not an Irish name. Jewish,
Gavin,
yeah.
not Jewish.
Gavin, Irish Celtic, middle name Mario, last name Jewish. It's like a full New York.
All right. So you're a New Yorker. I'm a New Yorker, and so I'm culturally Jewish. What happened on October 7th and where we are now, what do you have to say?
Listen, we're in a very dangerous place in the world. We've never been closer to World War III. That predated October 7th and only gotten worse after the brutal, barbaric attacks in the south of Israel. But it just goes to show that all of this modern society, all the things we take for granted, it's really being held on by a string. I mean, it just takes one moment, a few really vicious people, vicious animals, and they could really destroy not just individual lives, but the lives of everyone in the region as a consequence. And we're really on heightened. We were talking earlier about leadership and being visionaries. The lack of leadership right now on the world stage, the lack of leadership, not just from Biden, but America in general, has created this vacuum. It's created this absolute chaos, and I'll be honest with you, I only see it getting worse. I only think it's going to escalate.
Well, it is paving the way for Donald Trump's return, because I think there are many people that have to see the consequences of having what we have in the White House today. I almost said who, but it's more like a what. I don't know how you describe Biden or his team. And listen, the fact that we don't know who's actually running the country, that's unconstitutional. To have this cipher be president, it's unconstitutional. The idea that in the wings is the giggly, bubble-headed Kamala Harris. I mean, I really do think that we are seeing the just really unprecedented level of weakness and ineptitude. It's unprecedented, and we know that when you see that, that when you have that, it opens the door to what can only be described as evil. What happened in Israel was evil. This wasn't 1,400 people killed. They weren't killed. They were murdered. Very different than like some military thing. People were killed. They were murdered, tortured, burned, things that I don't even want to talk about that are so utterly satanic and sick. That's what happened. And then, of course, on top of that, you have people around Europe, in London, in New York, protesting, not just pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas, kill the Jews. It's almost like it's a gift to see the clarity, to see the absolute clarity of really evil, Jew-hating evil that we've never seen in our lifetimes come out.
No, I think that's the silver lining, and I know a lot. Growing up in New York, a lot of very liberal Jewish friends of mine, Democrat Jewish friends of mine. I mean, they've all taken they've seen reality finally for the first time. It finally smacked them in the face. They see what's happening on these college campuses. They're seeing these pogroms happening in real time. There's that plane that just landed in Russia. It got surrounded looking for any Jewish passengers. I mean, all of this is all of a sudden overflowing their news feeds, overflowing their timelines, and they can't escape it. And they're finally seeing, maybe the world that was painted to us is not really a reality. And we do need strong leadership. We need to push back against this. We need borders. We need all these policies that we're told, year over year, we're bad, we're racist, we're backwards, we're hateful. When in reality, they were keeping people safe. And what's happening in the Western world is a complete disaster. I mean, you mentioned the streets of all these major cities. These are cities, by the way, that had suffered from similar brutal attacks. You talk about what happened at the Bataclan in Paris, the Charlie Hebdo attacks, the attacks in Nice, the mass rapes in Cologne. I mean, the stuff that came out of there is very reminiscent of what we're hearing coming out of Israel. You know, the beheadings, the dismemberments. Like you mentioned satanic.
Not that Islam isn't a religion of peace. I want to be very clear. This is all a peaceful way. Beheadings, tortures, rapes. That's a peaceful way of expressing your faith, according to the radical Islamists. Who have taken over these powers. Yeah. Well, I mean, but again, then you have young people on campuses that are so dumb and so brainwashed that is actually, again, to some extent, it's a gift to see. Do you want to know what your kids are getting at Harvard? Like, oh, you're so proud they got into Harvard. Do you want to see what they're getting at Harvard and Yale and all of these other places? This is what they're getting. They're getting brainwashed in a way that, you know, it's a little hard to fathom, but there it is for all to see.
Yeah, it's in vogue. I mean, it's like, you know, being protesting for causes you don't know is like chic. It's in vogue. Like you go out, it's almost like it's like a social activity. There's no depth to it. You know, they'll say things like from the river to the sea, but they don't know what that means. What does that mean?
They don't know what river.
Exactly.
They don't know what sea.
Right.
They don't know that they're channeling Adolf Hitler when they say that. They're so ignorant. And so carried along with the emotional tide. But let's face it, Hitler would have not risen to power with that kind of dynamic. In other words, that emotion can really be, it is a river of evil, and they don't have any idea that they're participating with evil.
Correct.
They are just...
And he was elected, remember. Hitler was elected. I mean, you can manipulate, you can win over, you can brainwash enough people. That's the scary things. Our founders understood that. You know,
That's
we have a
At
republic.
least, I was going to say, Hitler was elected. Biden had to steal the election, but Hitler was actually elected.
Right.
That's the difference between Biden and Hitler. Only one I can think of. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're talking to Gavin Wax, who's the president of the New York Young Republicans Club. So we're talking about what's happening around the world. We're talking about Israel. The weakness projected by the White House has emboldened China to call for a ceasefire, which again, I think there's comedy in it. Like, we need a ceasefire. Well, they should have called for a ceasefire before the barbarian hordes came into Israel and butchered men, women, and children.
In their homes. And that was when there was a ceasefire. That happened, you know, the pre-October 7th, there was a ceasefire.
Wow. So Hamas didn't get the memo there was a ceasefire.
Right.
Interesting.
Well, we're going to see more of China rising on the world stage and presenting themselves as sort of like a neutral arbitrator, because there's no leadership in D.C., there's no leadership in Washington. So, you know, the Chinese are going to take advantage of that void, and they're going to come in, you know, as this rising power, and they're going to say, listen, the United States, they're toast, they're lost, they're declining. We're coming in, we'll be the new arbitrators of this dispute. We're going to see more of that. But look, the whole world's on fire. I mean, you talk about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. We just had an ethnic cleansing of Christians in Armenia, the oldest Christian community in the world. They were just, you know, deported forcefully from their homes. We have the conflict in Ukraine. We have conflicts potentially blowing up in Serbia and Kosovo. We obviously have a conflict brewing between Taiwan and China. I mean, the whole world is on fire, and there's no leadership whatsoever, and things are only going to get worse as this continues to escalate. And you know, where exactly is the plan? Where's the strategic vision? Where's the path forward to really calm these tempers? There's none of that. And the longer this goes on for, the worse the world's going to be as a result. And you know, again, I cannot stress everything they said that was going to happen when Trump took office in 2016. Nuclear war, Armageddon, conflict everywhere. He's going to be, you know, pushing the red button. All of that's happening now under Biden. I mean, we've never been less safe. I mean, the world has never been more on a brink of World War III. And all these flashpoints, they continue to grow. They continue to escalate. I mean, there's even conflicts in West Africa. I mean, there's conflicts everywhere. People aren't even talking about half these wars because it's too many to count at this point.
Well, you know, again, there were people, I did something like a debate with David French
oh, God.
Back in what was it? I guess it was, obviously it was 2020. And he, with a straight face, said many crazy, crazy things. He insisted that Joe Biden would be a better leader than Donald Trump, and that Biden would be moderate, that he would not be, in bed with the Marxist loonies on the left. And I just have to say, I wish I were wrong. I knew then I wasn't, but now we see that I wasn't. But I really wish I were. I wish I were wrong. And it seems clear that Biden, he doesn't just have a spine, he doesn't have any sense of anything. And our enemies know that. 100%. This is the key, is that if you don't understand that there's evil in the world, folks, if you don't understand there's evil in the world, they're looking for opportunities. How can we exploit weakness? If you're working for the mafia, okay, and you see, hey, here's a way we can make money. Here's a hole in the system. Let's go there. Any criminal, anybody, they're looking for the hole. They're looking for the place, where can I... China is doing that. All of our enemies are doing that. The Muslim radicals are doing that. All of our enemies are constantly looking for where can they exploit us. And now they have never, ever had more of an opening than they do right now.
They're looking at the electoral calendar. They're seeing how much can we cram in before the elections, because they think probably Trump is going to win. They think he's probably going to return. They're betting on that, or at least they're hedging their bets. And they're saying, how much can we advance our own geopolitical cause? How much can we advance our military positions? How much pain can we inflict?
That's it.
And then they're biding their time. They say, okay, we got till November of next year. Let's push forward with these things.
Right.
I mean, and people joke about it, but you look at, say, for example, Russia's interventions abroad. All the major, incursions by Russia against its neighbors, whether it was Georgia or Ukraine, all happened either during the Bush administration with Georgia or with the Obama administration in Ukraine. They didn't happen during the 4 years Trump was in office. So all of this is timed to the U.S. political calendar to a T. And it just goes to show they see what's happening in Washington probably better than we do, because they don't have the media there, spinning it for Biden. Right. They're just seeing the raw, slips up the stairwell and all the rest. So they see, it's an emperor with no clothes, and they see the sad state of affairs.
When do you think China will reach into Taiwan?
I think they're watching to see what's happening in Ukraine. Obviously, Taiwan would be a whole different animal. It would be an amphibious assault. You're talking about an island militarized to the T, tens of millions of people. China, they're not in the same situation as Russia. They're not, kind of on their last breath, kind of grasping to remain a great power. They're ascendant in many ways, and they're also extremely patient and cautious. I mean, if you look at the rise of China, it was kind of like Johnson's rise to the speakership. They were just kind of laying in wait in the background, biding their time through the 90s, building up their industrial strength.
Now, speaking of China, the idea that the other Gavin, Newsom.
Oh, yes.
That is like traitorous and sick that he met with the premier of China.
I mean, there's a lot of things going on there. One, I think it's Xi taking a dig at Biden. Two, it's Newsom pretending he's a statesman and also being a little bit of a, in a position, why is he meeting with China? But the fact that Xi even met with him when Xi won't even meet with Blinken, I mean, says a lot. It speaks volumes, and it shows that China's also trying to, make investments themselves. They're trying to put a bet on Gavin Newsom. I think that's a good bet. I think he's probably the best person on their bench. And I'm not saying that like I like him. I'm just saying that because I am scared of Newsom. The guy's a chameleon. He has a sharp tongue, and he can talk a good game. I mean, the guy, when he first ran for office in San Francisco, he ran with Republican support. He pitched himself as a moderate. That's how he first got elected. He was this socially liberal, fiscally conservative businessman. That was Gavin Newsom in the 90s. He's obviously moved left, but if he runs on the national stage, he's going to flip the script, and he's going to be like, no, I have this all-American family. I look good, great hair again, and he's going to say, listen, I'm the guy to win. And I think he could win suburban housewives. I think he could win, certain areas that are Republican. He has that appeal, and I think Republicans can't sleep on him.
He's not just a shallow, pretty boy. He is a shallow, pretty boy. But he's not just a shallow, pretty boy. He's a conniving, serpentine skunk. And he will do anything, including meet with President Xi in China. Unbelievable that he did that. Disgraceful and comedic. Yeah. Because to do that to Biden, I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. We'll be right back talking to Gavin Wax. Don't go away. We'll go back talking to my fellow New Yorker, Gavin Wax. Gavin, we were talking about pretty boy Gavin Newsom. I mean, he's as awful as it gets, pretty much. But it's interesting to think about the 2024 election. It seems certain that Trump will get the nomination. And I guess part of me has to wonder, at what point do people like DeSantis read the handwriting on the wall?
Listen, I think a lot of these guys are in way over their head. I mean, look at Pence. I mean, it took him having this pathetic showing at a local pharmacy where 6 people showed up, and I think 3 of them weren't even there for him to realize, maybe I should drop out.
They were there to get ivermectin.
I saw the green in their faces, the Joe Rogan green.
Yeah.
But no, listen, I think a lot of these guys are they're being led astray by their consultants. They got a lot of sycophants around them who are, puffing them up, telling them how great they are, spinning every last poll. But I think it's starting to hit a wall, and that wall is reality.
But they're desperately clinging to Iowa.
Iowa's
And
done.
When is Iowa?
Less than what is it in March? So we're fast approaching.
But they are really clinging to that. Like you know.
A poll just came out today. Trump's at 43% in Iowa, and he was up 3, and I think DeSantis was down 3. So every day that goes by, the Iowa gap, it expands. And, they keep moving the goalposts. First, it was wait till he announces. Then it was wait till the debates. Then it was wait till, this town hall. Then it was wait till the 3rd debate. I mean, the goalposts keep moving. Now they're saying, oh, well, wait till, these certain people in Iowa endorse, all of whom are already backing DeSantis. So it's like, at what point do you call it quits?
Well, I'm kind of a sucker. I feel bad for DeSantis because I feel like he got the worst advice. He got billionaires telling him, you're the man, we'll back you up. And they told him why Trump can never win and whatever. And he believed them. And I think that, he's paying a real price in terms of his whole future.
Everything, dollar and political capital.
And then you have, neocons like Nikki Haley. I guess she has people telling her she's going to be
it's
the
a
next.
battle for second place, and I think she may have surpassed him in Iowa in one poll, or is basically neck and neck, which is shocking.
Yeah.
So I mean, this could be really embarrassing for Ron. I think a lot of political careers are going to be ended by the time this primary is over, and I think there's a lot of political wisdom in laying in wait and biding your time and realizing when the best time to strike. Political timing is everything. This is horrible political timing on his front. I mean, the biggest things that concern me about 24 is what's happening in Colorado, the efforts to remove Trump from the ballot. I think if they're able to do that, that'll set a precedent where they could go state by state and knock him off the ballot. That concerns me to a far bigger degree than anything else, really, even some of these other civil and criminal cases. But, with the primary, I mean, the primary is a sideshow at this point. I think, being a person who's, very much on Twitter, very much on X, the morale on the other side, the morale in the DeSantis camp, it's down. I mean, they realize it. I mean, they're pumping out the talking points, but it's not the same.
Well, look, he has been an absolutely great governor, and I hope he has a future, frankly, but it's not going to be in 2024 as president. Let me ask you, we just got 40 seconds. The Biden, Newsom, Michelle Obama sideshow. I mean, I don't believe Biden will be the man. Do you? What do you think? RFK, I mean, what in the world?
Believe it or not, I think Biden is their best candidate. He has this appeal to certain older demographics, an older boomer demographic who may not understand that Biden isn't the same Democrat that he was 20, 30 years ago. So I think in many ways, he's the best candidate they have in the states that matter, PA, Michigan, Wisconsin, these kind of Midwestern states. He's the best guy they have.
Right.
And that says something about the state of their bench. You look at people like Michelle Obama, you look at people like Gavin Newsom, I think they'll be formidable in a future cycle.
Yeah.
And I think they bring different coalitions to the table. I don't see any of them
But a lot of
jumping in
people
this.
say Michelle Obama is a man, and I want to say I don't think that's true. Fortunately, we're out of time. Gavin Wax, terrific to have you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Hey folks, I'm Eric Metaxas. People who've read my book, Letter to the American Church, have asked me what are some practical things I can do at this time in America and in the church. Well, we've created a study guide resource to help you do just that, full of discussion, questions, and practical applications. It's a great tool for a small group or Bible study. Get a copy today at my website, ericmetaxas.com, or at Amazon, and share it with friends. God bless you.